Pokemon Legends Arceus isn't a good game, but let me explain. So Pokemon Legends Arceus is the latest in Game Freak's Pokemon releases that was released exclusively on our Nintendo Switch. And honestly, its presentation was not that well received all around. Now, we first got a good look at the game back in February of 2021 when we first received announcement and test footage, but on its release last month, we didn't really see much improvement from the test footage we got. And I will preface this by saying most people who have played the game have come to a pretty similar conclusion. The graphics do not look good. And the graphics of this game seem as though they were attempting to replicate the artwork of art style of feudal Japan, which, if so, they did succeed in giving us the feel of those brushstrokes and the hem paper texture of feudal Japan throughout the entire game, especially throughout the battle system, where it feels like you have strong impacts when those brushstrokes come on. But when you play the game, it doesn't exactly feel like you're in a feudal area. Not only in the creation of Pokeballs, which seems like a very much more advanced technology than just making something out of wood and capturing Pokemon in it, but once you progress from where you started in the village towards the end of the main story, they've already made more sophisticated buildings and even light fixtures that we see outside today. They are literally saying that integrating Pokemon into their village helped them advance that far in technology in a relatively short amount of time. We're not even in the story for maybe about a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. And that doesn't really give me the feeling of feudal era, especially feudal Japan. But let's just ignore that and come to the fact that they do need to render the areas, need to render cutscenes, and that doesn't really give me the feeling of a feudal era. But I guess let's ignore that fact for a moment and let's come to the realization that they did render the cutscenes mostly outside of that style. So they did know that the art form looked bad enough as to where they couldn't commit to having it for their cutscenes, but also they let the rest of the game look like basically an oil painting, or maybe they just ran out of budget. Now, that's obviously not to say that the game is ugly. Despite the oil painting style, the areas that you can explore are still amazing landscapes and actually decently generated, at least as far as I've seen from my copy, however. Now, there is a notable lack of change in the environment from the test footage that we got early 2021, and it's kind of disheartening for us who pre-ordered the game, as we were waiting for graphical updates, story updates, and whenever we did get news from the Pokemon channel before the game's released, it really wasn't much. And I'm not gonna lie to you, after the initial shock and serotonin of starting a new game and exploring a new region had settled in, I was fairly disappointed with the level of detail that was displayed in the landscape. Again, not to say that the landscapes weren't beautiful, it's just I felt there was a lot more they could have done, and definitely some areas that still felt like it wasn't as polished. But let's push that to a side. I've rambled on a bit here, and I like to do my best to explain why I think Legends, which is what I'll be calling it from now, why Legends is not a good game, but it is a good Pokemon game. Again, let me explain. So, first topic of discussion is obviously going to be graphics. That's what we first covered on. And this game is the first in open world roaming that we've gotten for Pokemon so far, to the point that we're able to pretty much freely interact with Pokemon out in the wild. Legitimately, we could think of the wild area or the Armored Islands and Isle of Armor in Sword and Shield to be basically a skeletal outline for what would be a free roam open world Pokemon game. And Legends, I believe, is only the prototype. Because, yeah, there's definitely no way this is the final product. I've played the game myself, and I can tell you that this this is not the final product of what an open world Pokemon game will be like, and I feel like everybody should be regarding that as such. Now, let's get more into the topic here. The graphical change in the end was probably a good decision though, as with this being the first of its kind in our Pokemon series releases, there's going to be a significant change in the difference of rendering and processing that was used in the generations before. And with a lower graphical style, it probably made rendering the entire expedition area a lot easier on the Switch. For how much of the game had to generate those expedition areas, because mind you, when you set out from the village, it had to load in everything in that expedition area every time you had to go through that loading screen. Which, mind you, the loading screen was, as far as my experience, never even a full minute for how much they had to load. So that's pretty good. And when they render an entire landscape for that expedition area, they're loading the textures, they're loading the models, the objects, the Pokemon locations, animations, behaviors, and item planting. That's a lot. And the fact that it took usually less than a minute for all of that, no matter which expedition area you go to, for all of that to load in, it's pretty damn significant. And yes, I'm not going to say there were no problems with it, because if you use a ride Pokemon such as Weirdeer or Braviary, the textures and sometimes the Pokemon will slowly pop in or slowly fade in as you're approaching different sectors of the map. And that's mostly because you're usually moving faster than the player character, whose player character speed is obviously based on the rendering speed of most of the area. So when you're moving faster than that, there is going to be a little hiccup, a little delay for pop-in, which is expected. Even with that being said, there was going to be delay, but there was not as much delay considering how much they were rendering in all of these areas and how further the render distance was from the previous games, from Sword and Shield and the Isle of Armor's DLC. So there is hope that Game Freak can utilize the Switch graphics capabilities so that they can have a much better experience in the next game, similar to what they've been able to do with such recent game ports from other titles, and of course with the Breath of the Wild series, which, although does also have its rough points graphically, is amazing in how much detail it can provide. And that's why, a lot of fans always try to compare it to other new releases of this type. With that in mind, I feel like we could give the graphics a pass on the quality check, only because of all the assets they really needed to load in every time we did move to a new area. But for any other game, I feel like this wouldn't be a pass, and pretty much the graphics would be a heavy hindrance. But because this is Pokemon, or relatively this is Game Freak, this is probably their best first attempt. And I think we can all agree that they need to step outside of their comfort zone, think outside of the box a little more, and give us, a little bit more sauce, a little bit more creativity, especially when it comes to the 3D models, animations, and their scaling. Because let's be honest, the scaling for some Pokemon before this game came out was pretty atrocious. But this is a step in the right direction. So I will say the graphics do hinder it from being a good game, but we'll see if they can improve on that in future releases. But with that being said, let's go on to the next point, and honestly one of the good points about the game, which is its mechanics and its details. Without exaggeration, this is why most of us bought this game. Open world Pokemon. Seeing all of the Pokemon in this game actually just existing and living out in the wild. That was a huge improvement for everything we've gotten, especially in the attempts that we've seen in Sword and Shield, which for some reason people thought was groundbreaking already, when realistically they were just giving us the bare bones, and most of our hardcore Pokemon fans knew that the wild area was, although something to be excited about, was definitely only breaking the surface. Now in this game, we not only get to physically throw Pokeballs that actually can miss, not that I would know anything about that, but we also get the thing that should have always been the goal of Pokemon battles. In-world battles. The lack of having to switch to a pre-rendered or random background area to fight a Pokemon was a triumphant victory for many longtime Pokemon fans, with there only being 2 examples of really being teleported to an open area or specific area for a very specific trainer battles. It was almost always just happening in world or right at the spot you encountered the Pokemon, completely removing lag or delay from having to encounter to battle any Pokemon or almost any trainer. Of course, that will vary depending on your copy, but for most people, there was almost no delay, no lag. You just switched immediately into battle based on a quick transition, and it was all done by a simple side swipe to focus on the Pokemon and then to zoom out from the trainer back to the battle. Quick, efficient, and honestly, something that should have been done a long time ago. Now, to be honest, the free roam during the battles was a little fun detail, and honestly, I didn't use it to full effect, not that there was much I could do with it, but even in my playthrough, there was a few small moments where I did actually prioritize movement during the battle, and that made for some actually memorable moments for my battles. There was like a time I accidentally took a hit that was meant for my Pokemon, which in my headcanon lowered its damage because some of those moves really just killed on sight, or coming up to my pokes when they were in need of a crit or just big damage in order to get that kill and not faint. It was like I was giving them a little morale boost, and sometimes it actually worked. So it was just fun little things that you could do in battle like that, which didn't really add much, but just made your experience all the more fun in the end. Now we'll get back to battles in just a sec, but I do want to talk about the actual overworld Pokemon. Their normal and their alpha Pokemon. And I personally believe that alpha Pokemon are a callback to Shadow Pokemon from the old Colosseum and Gale of Darkness games, where they were Pokemon that were bigger and stronger and technically evil until you purified them through battle and through, basic relationship building. It was a game where you couldn't really catch too many Pokemon, but that made the Pokemon that you did catch such valued members of your team. It was kind of like a Nuzlocke without permadeath. So I definitely recommend those 2 games if anyone is willing to go check them out. But back to this game. Alpha Pokemon, just like Shadow Pokemon, are bigger and stronger versions of the normal Pokemon that you see in the overworld. And their appearances in the overworld give such amazing detail. What I mean by that is we can see their actual size from their model, and if you pay attention to some of their behaviors, there is sometimes hints as to what their nature would be. Now, the size and level of Pokemon being known, by zooming in on the Pokemon focusing, you get to see their details such as their level and their gender, and the fact that you know that before you can choose to interact with the Pokemon is a great tool for team building, because you can already tell if it's too low level, if it's not the right gender, or if it just looks too small or too big for your team. And I think that's a really great thing. And of course, one thing that many of our pro players figured out is that you can actually change the nature of your Pokemon in this game, and you can do that not even halfway through the game. And it's all basically the best thing for team building, which I feel like was probably one of the best focuses that they put on the game. And I do think these are steps in the right direction for what our Pokemon games should be going for going forward, because it gives so much more life into those populated environments that we have Pokemon roaming around, like giving them little different shapes and sizes as well as species to inhabit those areas and just show just more life in those areas. And when you take into account the targeted aggression, where Pokemon will literally target you or attack you if you get too close or you startle them, that's a great way of depicting that. Although we do love Pokemon, they are in fact still wild animals. And in this game, they can be very dangerous. Which is a good reason why we have the inclusion of a feature like the dodge roll, and of course you're blacking out for damage. And even things like item crafting definitely made some From Software fans turn their head to this game, because it's basically the Pokemon equivalent of Dark Souls, which is honestly a really fun concept just to think about. And it's adding actual risk in a Pokemon game for its hunting and exploration, as you could lose all your items or even your money if you were not careful, which is also just a great way to really sell that this is a new world. Now, speaking of which, the decision to make this game a single-player friendly experience by having those lost items returned and found by other players or even your friends, that was honestly a neat feature. I didn't expect that at all from Game Freak, because of course their main goal is to sell as multiple copies as they could, right? That's a business thing. That's why it was always version exclusive Pokemon, or you need to trade to sometimes evolve a Pokemon, so you need to find friends who've bought the game, or any kind of solution. But this game, surprisingly single player friendly, because not only could you trade evolve with, of course, the regular method, but you could use items, which should have always been a possibility in more recent games. But again, business practices, trying to sell more copies, I get that. But the fact that you can now trade evolve just using items plainly on your Pokemon was such a huge feature for single player characters or single player gamers. Not only that, there was almost no version exclusive Pokemon. The only thing that we could even consider in this game is Darkrai, as you did have to buy Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl and have a save on your Switch in order to unlock a specific side quest in which you're able to catch Darkrai. However, other than that, there was no alternate exclusive Pokemon, which should never have been a thing, but once again, we all know Game Freak wants to sell as many copies as possible, and they'll do it by whatever means. But even so, with all of that, these small features, these small details that they added to make this game single player friendly, just makes this game a much rather enjoyable and affordable experience for just casual Pokemon fans who might not have that many friends or just might not want to spend so much money on buying both versions of the games. Now, going back into mechanics for a moment, we do see that there are two other welcome changes in Pokemon details that allow us to physically control when our Pokemon evolves, as well as full access to all of their previous moves. Now, first off, complete control on when our Pokemon evolves is surprisingly a very useful feature, because if there is such a thing as a Pokemon's previous evolution having better movesets than the final evolution or the next evolution, there's plenty of trainers who would grab an Everstone, put it on that Pokemon, and not have to deal with the fact that they kept on trying to evolve after every level up. In this game, that's not an issue. You can literally have a level 100 of your baby form Pokemon or your second evolution Pokemon, and it's just fine. It doesn't press you to evolve at all. Now, of course, that also means you can't cancel the evolution once you start it, but I feel that's kind of self-explanatory. You get 2 prompts before you actually evolve, so if you still go through and evolve a Pokemon by accident, that's kind of your fault because you weren't paying attention. But the bigger thing is the full access of your move catalog for every Pokemon. The fact that we no longer have to have a move deleter or move reminder, although we still do have a move tutor in the form of a NPC in the village, that's still far better than having to have 3 separate entities, have 3 separate items that we need to collect for an entity to just learn or delete one move. Is so much better. And the even better thing is that all the move tutor requires in this game is money. Doesn't need a special item. The only time you need a special item is if you want to master a move, which you can easily do by just leveling up your Pokemon or just using that move more and more until it's mastered. So that was just one small quality of life change that was so significant in not only your team building, but in your trading experience for your Pokemon. Honestly, great features. that should have been implemented a while ago. But hey, even a late start is better than no start at all. And these features should continue going forward, as I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be. There's literally no problems for these features to not go forward, and they're just areas that you can improve upon. Another great change that can also go in this example is the removal of inherent IV and EV values. Now, there are still effort values in this game. However, they can easily be changed and increased without the need for some specific training method or some non-available Pokemon that you need to farm in order to get the certain IV. That was phenomenal change for a lot of casual players, especially the pro players who know how difficult it is to find a specific Pokemon that'll drop that specific EV value that just never quite spawns when you want it to. Especially when you have a set amount of EV and IV values and you can't risk having the wrong value on your Pokemon. As someone who's played a few Nuzlocke and actually EV trained, I know exactly this pain, and I know that is why I love this new feature. Now, of course, some Pokemon already have set values for their EVs, their effort values, but they can be increased higher without much difficulty because in this game it's relegated to actual items that are used to increase your effort value. So it's pretty manageable. And honestly, I personally think that this is a better system for Pokemon stat adjustment than what we've gotten in previous games. And I do prefer they try to do more changes with the EVs in the next games that aren't so restrictive and conditional, to make it, a lot easier for when they do decide to implement a multiplayer system to make this a little bit more competitive. Because let's be real, Pokemon Legends Arceus is not a competitive game, it's strictly a single player experience. And now we get into the most egregious disappointment in this game that I think most of the people who bought this game and have known Pokemon for a while can get behind. That this is the most huge, it's the hugest disappointment in this game, and that's that there's still no follow Pokemon. So let's be clear, in this game where you have programmed your character to actively call out your Pokemon, to have a small chat with them using specific button prompts, or have them speak to other Pokemon you've caught, or even just have them outside of your Pokeball to take a nap right next to you, you're telling me with all of that foresight you did not program them to follow you around the map? And don't give me that bullshit excuse of regarding the coding and the necessary program that you would have to use to follow Pokemon. No, because you've already done it. You've already got that coding. You did it in Sword and Shield's DLC for the Isle of Armor and the Armored Islands, and you can even do it in this game too. See, the wild Pokemon have a certain radius in which if you aggro them, they will pursue you. They'll, of course, launch an attack if you're within certain range. However, once you're out of their range or their detection radius, they will lose aggro and no longer be hostile until they see you again. You simply need to use the previous scripts and existing code in Legends in order to develop an intelligent follow AI. Your Pokemon are called out from their Pokeball, and once you start moving, if you get at least halfway from the detection radius that you already have set up, this is from your Pokemon that's been released from their Pokeball. If they see you're halfway out of their detection radius, they will get up and they will begin to follow you. And just as you did with Sword and Shield, the speed stat should actually determine how fast the Pokemon follows you. Is that always a good choice? No, but for Pokemon that are relatively slower, it's funny seeing them waddle slowly to you as though they're trying their best. We all think that's cute. Keep that. No need to change that. However, back on topic. But once the player has exited their detected radius, the Pokemon will return to the Pokeball and return to the trainer, which you already have coded in you, because if the player moves too far from a called Pokemon, either they're just standing there or they're sleeping, they will automatically zoom back into their Pokeball, and the trainer is just going to keep going on their way. So you already have a detection radius set from the coding of the wild Pokemon, especially the alpha Pokemon. So you already have a targeting behavior where the alpha Pokemon or any aggro wild Pokemon is approaching, aka following the trainer. Although their approach is for the purpose of attacking, all you need to do is do a slight adjustment in the script and boom, it's that easy. You have a follow mechanic in your open world game. Although it's not even that big of a deal compared to the other things we'll be talking about later, it's still a huge disappointment, and we all know you could have done it. Alright, and let's circle back to the battle system real quick to finish where we left off there. Now, first of all, battle system has the beautiful change to what probably should have been a much greater understanding of how the Pokemon turn-based combat system should have worked. And that is that even without the use of some agile or strong type moves or strong variations, there are still turns that can be gained or lost based on certain moves. For instance, there are speed-based moves that will automatically change the move order of the Pokemon based on that move and how fast they are. So things like Quick Attack or Extreme Speed actually can get you another attack on top of that without you having to agile that Quick Attack or anything, because it's so fast the other Pokemon can't react. Inversely, there are also moves like Hyper Beam, Giga Impact, and such that do take a move to recharge, just like in the normal game, and just like in the normal game, that Pokemon loses a turn, so after you use that move, the offending Pokemon actually gains a bit more of an advantage. And I think that's just a great way to display and honestly show the difference in the original turn-based combat system as to what should probably be the turn-based combat system going forward. Now, however, unlike other Pokemon games, and this is still honestly due to this being a primarily single player experience, this game does not utilize the tactic of strategy and setup moves for Pokemon that a lot of people have just had as their bases. Instead, this game has enemies and Pokemon that rely heavily on dealing one-hit KO super effective moves or high power moves that just win against your Pokemon, making these battles much more of a race to see who can hit the first one-shot kill on their opponent faster, and it's not that much strategy. Yeah, there is still setup moves and still strategies you can implement, but with trainer battles and alpha Pokemon, their moves are a lot of the time stronger, to the point where even if you're on the same level or sometimes even levels above, they still almost one-shot you or get you to half of your health. So by the time you're doing setup moves, you have to go back and heal or swap out, and you've pretty much lost the point of that strategy. So that's primarily probably just due to this, once again, being their first outing and this being a completely single player experience. But that's something that can't be overlooked for most of the hardcore Pokemon fans who definitely took most of their competitive Pokemon experience into this game and was trying to set up and trying to do all these things, only to realize that this game was literally who can hit the other person hard enough to make that Pokemon faint fast. And I think you can get more out of that battle system than just that. But we also do need to talk about crowd battles, or swarm battles, however you want to call them. Now, this is supposed to be a more primitive world as far as compared to Pokemon training and battling. So I like to know, why is it everyone else, wild Pokemon and trainers alike, can use up to 3 Pokemon at a time? However, we the player are restricted to fight by the rules. Rules, mind you, that have not been made yet. That we have no rules as to it should only be one-on-one Pokemon battle or I should respect my opponent. No, this is the wild. This is primitive time. We have no reason that we should not be able to throw out our entire team of 6 Pokemon to fuck up that Parsec that just decided to look at me funny. Not to mention, this would be the perfect way to introduce maybe a 6v6 battle system. You know, you have a displayed turn-based system. You know for a fact there are moves that you can set up to properly go faster or have your Pokemon, you know, strike faster. Not only with speed-based moves, but with agile and stronger moves, and you can easily restrict the number of Pokemon that are being able to be called out based on the environment. Basically, if it's a small space, you can't call out 6 Pokemon that are huge, so you just restrict it. There's no real reason that in a land with no rules that we're not able to send out more than 1 Pokemon. Especially when we're faced with some rather difficult trial battles that have us fighting 3 Pokemon from another trainer, or just 3 Pokemon in the wild all at the same time, and we're only supposed to use 1 Pokemon. You could at least let us throw out 2 more of our Pokemon to make it an even 3v3, or like I said, just say get and just throw out all 6 of our Pokemon and make it more crazy. Now, there's definitely a crowd for chaotic battle systems, and I think a lot of people would honestly love to see more chaotic battle systems in Pokemon. And, you know, you need to start capitalizing on that, Game Freak. Capitalize and cater to those types of people, because realistically, you don't lose anything by that. If the fans still want to do 1v3s, they just don't throw out more Pokemon. But if you have somebody who would love to have a 6v6 battle out of nowhere, there's absolutely no reason they couldn't do it. So I just think there was no reason it couldn't have been introduced in this game. In the game where there are literally no rules and you're literally just fighting Pokemon in the wild, I don't see why you couldn't have done that. And the last mechanic, or in this case the last method I do want to talk about as far as mechanic wise, is going to be shiny hunting. And I will preference that this is pretty much why I pushed this game back a little more, or rather I should say I pushed this review back a little more, is because I did want to experience shiny hunting in this game before I did a full review on it, because you can't have a Pokemon game review without talking about the method of shiny hunting that was introduced in that game. So that being said, let's go over this a little bit. Now, I won't claim to be an expert in the field of shiny hunting in Pokemon games, not at all. But with that said, the shiny hunting method in Legends is one of the fastest and most efficient methods I've seen for shiny hunting. The mass outbreak feature in Legends is what makes this game probably the fastest in the way of shiny hunting that I've seen in honestly quite a while. It's reminiscent of the Dex Nav from Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire game, which allowed you to target one specific Pokemon that's available in that area and chain that Pokemon over and over, encountering it over and over until you have a high enough chain to where you're likely to get a shiny. I would know because that was really the first time I've ever tried shiny hunting to get a shiny Ralts. And since then, I've always, weirdly enough, I've always inspired to get a shiny Ralts in every game that I could and every Pokemon game going forward. And that's really what propelled me into shiny hunting. And honestly, it's a really cool tool that I wish they kind of implemented back into more games somehow, but even so, it's still fine. The mass outbreak will pop up in your map when you're leaving for an expedition for exactly 1 Pokemon in one of the areas that you're going to or could be going to. Now, unfortunately, it is random which Pokemon will pop up in a mass outbreak, so more times out of not, it's going to be a Pokemon you either don't care about or not the one you're looking for. However, once you see that shiny Pokemon, or I should say, once you see that Pokemon you want to shiny hunt for, you definitely lock that in and you save your game. Basically, because of the way the developers had to set the free roam areas for Pokemon in this game, they wouldn't load all the values of the Pokemon and of the area until you actually load it in the area. So, because of that, shiny hunters, players, found out this method to basically make it so you always have a good read on how you're going to shiny hunt, so you're not just going over and over and over. And it's very effective. It's like I got my shiny rolls in the fastest time I've ever gotten it, through shiny hunting, through breeding, Masuda method, through chain fishing, through the Dex nav. This was probably the fastest. I spent no more than about 3 hours at the most getting to a shiny Ralts. That's crazy for me. I've never gotten a shiny that fast. And honestly, I'd rather not try to make this video longer by explaining all of the details and the mechanics into how this works. So I'd rather refer you to check out this channel, Austin John Plays. I love his content personally, and he does a full in-depth explanation and guide to shiny hunting in Pokemon Legends Arceus, explaining how it works, explaining what exactly you need to do, and the fairly simple steps that you need in order to start shiny hunting in this game. I love his content, and I think he's worth checking out. So link to his video will be in the description. Definitely give it a watch. Now, methods aside, shiny hunting in this game is actually really easy, not only because of the method, but because of probably the biggest hype detail that we got during the release, which was the fact that you can actually see the shiny in the open world before you encounter it. And to make it even easier for you, they even give you a side quest to teach you the sound and specific effect notification that you'll be able to hear and see when there's a shiny in the overworld. And after you completed that quest, you're actually more likely to run into shinies, because after I completed the quest, I found how many? At least 3 shinies just completing the game. I wasn't even hunting for them, and I just got 3 shinies in the wild that I found without trying, because I heard the notification or I saw the notification. So I definitely recommend you trying the side quest, even if you don't want to 100% the game. There's a lot of side quests that will benefit you, and it's pretty much worth it to do. And the game is very shiny collection friendly, and the fact that since the entire point of this game is to complete the Hisuian Pokedex, it's a very smart and incentivizing choice for this game to have it so it's a lot easier for you to obtain shinies, because they want you to complete the Pokedex. And they've made it so abundantly clear. So all in all, the shiny encounters and shiny hunting in this game has been made very easy for first time shiny hunters or amateur shiny collectors, and of course for the pros. So if you're trying this game out and you want to look up shiny methods or look up shinies of Pokemon to collect and add them to your Pokedex, I definitely suggest you collect some. I only had 2 real shiny Pokemon that I really wanted. Of course, one again being the Ralts, but again, I got my shiny Pokemon and the other shiny Pokemon, which I'll show in a moment, that really wasn't a lot of time at all. I did it in less than a day. That's how easy this was. So I definitely recommend try shiny hunting in this game if you've never tried it before. It'll be really easy and a more fun experience than you'll probably get in many of the other games from this franchise. Now it's time for what I believe is going to be the longest part of this video. It's time for us to go over my opinions on the story and characters, or rather the lack thereof, in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Let's talk about it. So I've made this video and edited it mostly, and I've set its sports release date to be exactly a month after the game was released to the general public. That way I could go in depth in the story, not have to worry about spoilers or about people getting spoiled, because it's been out for a month at this point. You've probably seen full playthroughs, including mine, if you watch mine. Seen Let's Plays or reviews. You've seen plenty. I'm sure there's been plenty of reviews by now about this game, and I've even seen some people saying not to buy the game based on some points that I've probably discussed here, or maybe some points I didn't even realize. So let me confirm something first. I started by saying that Legends was not a good game, and for the content in its story, I still believe that. However, Legends is a good Pokemon game. If you don't understand what I mean by that, let's talk about the story. We start off in a void, like some generic anime isekai, and then we meet God. Well, Pokemon God anyway, but shit, this is an isekai. We're brought before Arceus, who tells us without knowing who we are, or apparently even our gender or appearance, to go catch them all, or, excuse me, seek out all Pokemon. Okay. And then he takes our phone, and our character has a mini panic attack about losing our one cellular device, which, as we all would, until Arceus is like, nah, I pranked you, bro. You're on Pimp My Phone. Boom. God phone. Which quite literally does nothing except act as a GPS for us, which our phone could have already done, I guess, and told us what to do, which we didn't really need to know because most of the time they tell us. So most of its use is really in the finale, where it finally has a function, which is to move the story along via Deus Ex Machina, I suppose, like opening a hidden cave. Literally, that's the only thing it does. Before that, though, we're thrown from a space-time rift, which appeared above a literal mountain, meaning we fell literal thousands of feet, but somehow survived. I have no idea how we're durable enough to handle that. After all, we're only a teenager. I guess our god phone must have blessed us with constitution bonuses, or maybe not, since we still black out from regular Pokemon attacks, or drowning. So, no idea how we survived that. Anyway, we wash up on conveniently named beach and conveniently meet the professor of this game, which is already a red flag actually, because we will learn that there are actually guards and essentially rangers at the village near this beach, but the one that came to check on the mysterious teenager that fell from a time rift in the fucking sky was some goofy professor. Okay. He then shows us the three starters of this game, claiming that they all ran out of his lab and he's been unable to catch them in his new machines, the Pokeballs. Which, if we can talk real quick about that, not only are we retconning that Professor Oak wasn't the creator of the Pokedex in this game, but that the Pokeballs, the things created to catch these dangerous Pokemon, this man apparently created those machines that require a skill he does not have. Why would you not make a laser or something? If he can't literally throw a Pokeball, if he can't throw a Pokeball to save his life, why did he make them something that you have to throw? That makes no sense on any scientific level. That's like me making a gun and knowing I can't see farther than my hand. That makes no sense. Anyway, we catch the three Pokemon, and he almost pisses his pants in excitement, as you would. And he decides then and there he's gonna gaslight us into completing the Pokedex. Great start. He takes us into the village. We meet best boy or girl, depending on your gender, and we are then hazed into not Team Galaxy, that's a spoiler, but instead Galaxy Team by, get this, a chick with no eyebrows. That's not the face of a team that I would have expected to see first off the rip. I swear, this woman saw a Wurmple, went Super Saiyan 3, cut her hair, and never looked back. That's why she has no eyebrows. That's the definitive proof. No one. Anyway, she apparently initiates us into the Galaxy team after we catch almost 3 Pokemon in one day. Something that these people apparently think is so impressive that they won't shut up about it for the first literal 20 minutes of the game. And we decide to celebrate the fact that I won't die because I have a place to sleep now. Oh, did I forget to mention that if we actually fail this task that they gave us, we'd be forced to fend for ourselves in the wild? Yep. Team Galaxy threatened to kick a teenager out into the wilderness by giving them a task they thought was nearly impossible. Yep. What a great villain origin story. Ah,
Bruh.
gotta say. Anyway, we get accepted into the ranks, and then we get sumo thrown by their commander. Yeah, he's quite a charming guy, actually. I definitely wouldn't expect him to become a major asshole by the end. And boom. You get a crafting kit, some more Pokeballs, and you're able to explore the Hisui region and complete the Pokedex. At least for a little while, because that's when the main story of this game starts. And that's the request missions. No, that's not a joke. The request missions are actually what makes up a bulk of this game's story. More on that later. Anyway, you improve your skills, and then you're introduced to Best Girl and the Alpha Pokemon, and then you get to learn about the Diamond Clan for the first time. Game Freak, instead of their usual choice of version exclusive games, said, "We'll make the Diamond and the Pearl clans be judgmental and prejudiced clan factions that believe that they worship the one and true God, when in reality they don't realize that they're actually worshiping a completely different, but still valid, entity that manages to conform to their worldviews." And of course, this entity that they thought they were worshiping in the first place is something completely different and beyond their understanding, but yet still worthy of their admiration. And by the end of the story, they realized they were wrong to be so quick to call other people stupid or be prejudiced, because they finally realized that the religions don't matter, that what instead matters is how you choose to live your life and follow your beliefs. Ultimately, the almighty Shinron was probably the friends that we made along the way. Wait, getting on track a bit, you find out that the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan are really stressed out because their super cool rare variant Pokemon that they all call noble Pokemon are super angry because they all basically got struck by lightning, which for some reason came out of the same space-time rift that we fell out of. And if you think that was a joke, I have some bad news for you. Like, I know Pokemon can summon the elements and stuff for their moves, but the fact that the space-time lightning is not only a main story beat, but the way to calm down these frenzied Pokemon is to wait for it. Throw food at them until they're not angry anymore.
Bruh.
You know, in Pokemon Coliseum, we could actually use an ancient forest relic blessed by Celebi, or a magical flute that was said to calm even the mightiest Pokemon to quell the shadow Pokemon and purify them. Or we obtain the Mighty Morphin Kimono Girls to call out Lugia. We get the Primal Stones to quote unquote control Groudon or Kyogre. Or maybe we even travel through an alternate dimension where we fight the big bad
Nice.
Goth Mommy, who got a little too friendly with an Ultra Beast, if you know what I mean. And what do we do in Legends? You throw food at it. Yep, 10 out of 10 right in Game Freak. Oh, Pokemon hangry? Oh, I can relate to that. This is a $60 game. Moving on, we decided, along with catching, excuse me, seeking out all Pokemon, we decided to stop these frenzied Pokemon from hurting anyone. So we all go along, quell the frenzied Pokemon, and we meet their food giver, wardens, who, you know, and some questionable qualifications are the confidants to these noble beasts, and some wardens definitely have some very questionable qualifications to call into. Uh, not gonna say who, but basically all of them talk shit about their Pokemon to you and talk shit how you're not able to quell them because you're too much of a scrub. You know, except Best Girl. She was actively trying to help the nobles and unfortunately wasn't that helpful, but hey, it's the thought that counts. And now she cuts hair because fuck being in danger.
Nice.
Honestly, that's a completely reasonable response if you ask me. Anyway, we proved them wrong by quelling their nobles one after one, and once we hit that last Pokemon with the itis, the sky decides to turn red. Everybody validly assumes that it's the end of the world and proceeds to freak the fuck out. What's not reasonable, however, is that the leader of the Galaxy team turns into a racist and says that we turned the sky red. And that is part of our evil plan, since we, and I fucking quote, came from the same space time rift as that strange lightning, so we can't say that you aren't the cause of this all. A grown man suspects this of a teenager. Not only is that stupid, because we have been improving the village and undoing the frenzied states of the noble Pokemon, but if we were the type of being that could summon lightning from hundreds of feet away from us that we're nowhere near and can't see, and turn the damn sky red, then why would you challenge our innocence in a closed room, away from the eyes of the public, mind you? And if I was powerful and evil, as you fear, I could have destroyed you in an instant. Like the moment I even thought you were on to me, if I had an evil plan, you would have been destroyed, decimated. If I can turn the sky red, I can disassemble your fucking molecules. Why would you challenge me in a closed room? But wait, it gets better. Because how do they deal with their public enemy number one? They exile us from the village. Now, I'm not trying to say I condone this sort of action, but if I maybe thought a teenager was somehow causing the entire world to unravel at the seams of space and time, I don't see why I would just let them go. I mean, wouldn't the smarter idea be to kill them? Or, I don't know, maybe even imprison them just so we could figure out what their motive is or how to undo it? I mean, listen, I know why they didn't go that route, because this is Pokemon and it's supposed to be child friendly. And plus, we are actually innocent, so, doing this to us would have been really fucked up and they would have still been in shit. So, obviously, that was not what they were going to do. But the way the villagers treat you, even after you got to know them and help them throughout the story, especially help them improve their village, they so easily turned on you and just accepted you as some sort of evil figure that was causing the world to collapse simply because you fell from the sky. Something tells me that they might not be so radical as to try and murder a child off of just pure speculations, if you ask me. Anyway, we are exiled, and in order to prove our innocence, we have to research and stop the sky from bleeding. Which, if we did do, and this was part of our even plan, I feel like that would just make us even more of a likely suspect. Because let's be honest, if a fucking teenager is able to stop the sky from bleeding, wouldn't you more think that that person had more to do with that? It just kind of sounds like you can't really prove your innocence this way, or maybe there wasn't a way for us to prove our innocence at all. Maybe it was just bad writing. Who knows? Anyway, while we're exiled, we meet Not Cynthia's ancestor again, who introduces us to Not Cynthia's hot ancestor, and, well, she tells us a bunch of riddles about a red chain and then gives us some vague directions to some caves. And remember the God phone? Well, it's time to shine. As you're using it, we're able to open secret caves that let us catch the three lake legendary. Oh, well, I guess we just earned their trust by playing some games with them. That's fine, I guess. Well, once we get the stone tablets from them, we'll get the stone tablets of mind, heart, and soul, and with their powers combined, we summon a red chain. Honestly, it looks like we probably could have braided that. Anyway, we go back to the village and we find out the leader decided we were taking a little too long and he decided to go close the space-time rift himself. Which, if you had that kind of manpower, don't you feel like you should have done that a little bit earlier? Kind of a lost foresight there. We'll chalk that up to more writing. Anyway, we don't want to die, so we decide to climb the mountain and stop him from doing something stupid and killing us all, which is exactly what he was about to do. So we beat him in a battle, then we walk up to the space-time rift and we show everyone how we're quite literally the main character of life. And we fight Dialga, or Palkia, depending on whichever clan you decide to side with for the ending of the story. But let's be honest, you'll side with a non-racist Diamond Clan because pretty much everybody in there is pretty cool, except one idiot, but honestly, he's only in there because we're nice enough to let him in, so he doesn't count.
Easy!
So you catch a deity, and then surprise, the second half of that duo appears. And instead of easily wiping the floor with it like we literally just did to the first one, we ran away for some reason. Oh wait, we ran away because the leader of the Galaxy team was scared and thought we couldn't win, even though he just watched us solo a literal deity and catch it. Who wrote this fucking? It's decided that we use the shattered remains of the red chain that broke during the cutscene in which we fight Dialga, and with that we make the first prototype Master Ball. We get a cameo from all the key players and all the key characters that we've grown to know, and we go up there and catch the second deity. And to no one's surprise, we succeed. The
Easy.
sky gets a band-aid and the world is saved. And we go back to the village and have a festival with all our newly reformed racists and clan members who are now enjoying each other's company. It seems the world almost ending was just enough that we needed to have everybody stop hating each other and realize that we are all just people trying to live in the same world. You know, that's a pretty good send-off for this game. Hey, wait a minute, we're still here! Yep, that's right, we're still stuck here. So, why aren't we back yet? Well, we haven't completed the Pokédex yet. So, you figure, that is the first thing they told me to do in the game. So, you go out, catch all the Pokemon, and if you have any side missions left, you of course try to go and complete those. And eventually you'll make your way to Not Cynthia's hot ancestor and thank her for helping you get the red chain and stopping the space-time rift. Then Not Cynthia's ancestor will show up and get all excited about meeting God, which by that I mean Arceus. He's so excited that for some reason he can't stop twitching his foot while he's talking to us about him. Kinda weird. Should probably get that checked out. So you do what you got to when you get some more information, figure out that you need to get some plates. So you go pick up some plates for dinner with Arceus and you return to the temple, where nothing happens. Alright. But then we get the twist that everyone literally saw coming. Because Not Cynthia's ancestor, who is actually called Bolo by the way, is a hardcore Arceus fanatic who essentially forced you to be called to this world in order to try and beat Arceus. Yeah, he's the literal inciting factor to the whole game. He summoned one of the coolest legendaries ever, Giratina, and had it open a space-time rift to draw out Arceus. It did kind of work, and then it dipped because it never got to fight Arceus. So now, Volo is pissed that all of his efforts have been laid to waste, and all he got was a kid who apparently he's so pissed that he wants to fight for all the dinner plates that we collected for our nice dinner with Arceus. That's kind of rude, dude. Thus starts the hardest boss battle in Pokemon history. This was the equivalent of a Nuzlocke Elite Four because after you defeat Volo, who basically has Cynthia's champion team with some decent type coverage, you then attract the attention of Giratina, who says it wants all the smoke that Volo just got. So this is, mind you, without your team having healed at all from your battle with Volo. So if you lose this battle, guess what? You gotta start the whole thing over from Volo at the top. Oh, that's great. And if that wasn't enough, after you beat Giratina, it comes back like some Dragon Ball Z shit and says, well, that was nice, but now I'm gonna fight you using my full power. And it uses its true form. Now, with combat buffs. So now you have to fight Giratina again without healing. If you manage to make it through that gauntlet, you'll be able to collect the last dinner plate from Volo, and then you'll assemble them together to create the magic conch shell, which you will try to use and catch Arceus for real. If you haven't caught every Pokemon, by the way, it'll just tell you that nothing happens, that you need to come back after you seeked out all Pokemon. No big deal. So, after you've gotten all Pokemon, you go back to the temple, play the magic conch shell, and the big name drop of the game appears. You fight literal God. And if you win, he literally says, huh, not bad, young blood. I like the way you fight. Here, why don't you take a piece of me, and that way I can fight with you in battle. And then he dips. Now you heard that right. He fights you, he likes you, he gives you a little copy clone of himself, and then he dips. He literally made you catch all the Pokemon, fight the hardest boss fight we've had, stop a whole space-time rift from breaking apart this universe, and all so he could run hands with a teenager he never even sends us back home. My mama is probably scared sick right now, bro. What the fuck? So now we're trapped in this alternate version of the past, and we just gotta live with it. Because that's the true ending of Pokemon Legends Arceus. Not that we get to choose whether or not we go back. Motherfucker literally fights us and dips. That is the main story. Now, of course, this was just a summarized version of the main story, but for a video game you're paying $60 for, this story sounds like a hot mess. And that's because it very much is. The characters are relatively flat, one-dimensional characters that barely show pretty much any growth or change besides the clan leaders and their prejudice, except that the Diamond Clan leader didn't really have any prejudice. He was just kind of ignorant. and the Pearl Clan leader was pretty damn prejudiced, including most of her people, but that's fine. That's not what we're talking about. The animations are repetitive and not as dynamic after you've watched them for a while after playing the game. Sure, the first few times they're charming and especially the expressions look nice and fresh, but then after you've played it for some time, you just see them reusing the same expressions or reusing the same pose, and it doesn't really deliver that much more character than it did during the first time you've seen it. And that says a lot considering the expressions deliver more character than most of the dialogue in this game. And then you add the old oil painting visuals that you get, and the game just feels rushed and unfinished at times, or just lazily put together at worst. And that's just talking about the characters. The story, as you just heard, is pretty much a hot mess. Unfortunately, most of the characters' only memorable quality is that we can say, oh, they must be Blank's ancestor, or they must be someone who's just like that character, and not much else about them. Some characters get a bit more growth, but for the most part, the story doesn't even focus on them. And once their mission or their section of the story is over, they're just kind of done with, except for the brief cameo you probably get of them at the end. And the most characters that you do see the most growth with are the villagers and mission request givers. That's right, the side quest characters are probably the most fun characters in the game, and that's sad. Now, this might be a personal belief, but I do believe that the better story is actually told through the villagers and the village itself. Because once you start to take side requests from villagers, it'll start off as small things like showing them a Pokemon or showing them a completed Pokedex for a Pokemon. And, some villagers will just have generic responses, give a few facial animations, and that be it. But there's other villagers that actually end up keeping Pokemon you show them, or better yet, they learn to go get a Pokemon themselves and learn to interact with Pokemon through it. There's the guard in front of the Galaxy Team headquarters who just wants a Beautifly after he saw it one time in the wild. So we think, why not? We go catch the guy at Wurmple, and eventually, after you progress the game and get enough, side missions, it'll evolve into a Dust Talks. And we expect him to be upset or be freaked out of what is this new Pokemon, but he embraces it. He embraces his partner and says he'll stick with him no matter what shape he evolves into. And you don't expect that from just a off-note side character that you get a side mission from. And then you got this old lady who initially tries to get rid of a Chimecho who's hanging out from her building's aisles, and you know you go across the village trying to see where you can move the Chimecho, if it wants to fit in here or not. And it basically just keeps telling you responses of it doesn't really like this place or it looks sad for some reason. And as you keep going, you keep reporting back to her, and she finds out she has a lot in common with this Chimecho. Until eventually you go over to her neighbor's house, who has a identical house to hers, and even though the aisles is exactly the same, hits the sunlight right, the wind just breezes through there on a nice path, the Chimecho just hates it. It doesn't like it over there. And then the old lady walks up and she says, well, I realized that I quite grown attached to the little guy. I got a little lonely when I realized Chimecho wasn't going to be around. And of course, he's elated to hear that, and they just hang out. She lets him stay on his isle. She enjoys his chimes. He enjoys her company, and they just chill. This old lady was scared and almost prejudiced to Pokemon at the start of this mission, and in less than a day, she just come to realize that, Pokemon might not be so bad. I kind of like this one. And then, my favorite is probably the woman who is one of the first side missions we get who's interested in Starly. Now, near the start of the game, we'll catch a Starly for her, we'll show it to her, and we'll incentivize her to, pet it, touch it. It's fine. But she's, of course, gonna be too scared. And everybody in the village is pretty scared of Pokemon, so I guess we expect that. But as you progress the game and improve the village, you start to see everybody getting Pokemon, making more advancements in the village, and you even if you catch her, if you catch her. You'll even see she's got a Starly nearby. I don't know if she caught it. I don't know if it just likes to chill out with her, but it's nearby her and she's not freaking out. She might even have it as an actual Pokemon partner. And it's just little stuff like that that has so much meaning to it throughout the game that you get through side characters in the village rather than the main characters, which again, the only ones that have real development are probably the clan leaders, and that's because their designs are probably the most interesting and they've got the most dialogue out of pretty much any other character. So, yeah, just from these three random villagers that you can help throughout your side quest in the village are already more interesting or more complex than some of the main characters in the series. And honestly, I'd love to go in depth on explaining more about the characters that we do know, and of course, you know, main characters besides the clan leaders on why some of them are so one dimensional. But this video is long enough as it is already, and I got a lot of editing to do, so we won't do that. But basically, not only are the villagers changing as we continue, but the more missions we do complete and the further in the story we get, the village itself does change. More houses are built. Because of that, more people move into the villages. The shops get upgraded. They get more wares. Their appearances change. All their items are upgraded too. And they even advance in technology. They go from literal lanterns outside for light at the end of the night to fully functional street lamps and even an electrical water wheel that's running through the using the village's river to produce electricity. I even saw what looked like no, there's no joke. I even saw chimneys and I was just like, they didn't have those when I started the game. So there's actually progress in the village. The village itself is living and breathing because of how it changes throughout the story, and that just really makes the village feel more lived in and more alive, while the rest of the game feels rather flat and static despite all the things that are going on. It may not be much in comparison to the other Pokemon entries with their over the top stories of organizations trying to conquer the world or control Pokemon beyond their power, but that's not really the main focus of this game. The game is really all about catching Pokemon, the Pokemon catching experience. So even with the poor writing, the questionable artistic decisions, and the rather boring main cast, the game is still fun when you're focusing on the Pokemon. Of course, the Pokemon haven't changed that much since the previous games, except the way you interact, catch, and train them. So if all I cared about was a good story that captivated me, breathtaking graphics, or even characters that I just love to see more, even if it was only cameos or spin-off missions or their own mini animated series, which we're obviously gonna get because let's be real, the Pokemon company only really loves to make these games because they love to make anime off of these games that always do well because it's Pokemon. But even still, if that was all I cared about, then I unfortunately have to say that this game is not worth the money. It's not a good pick. But if you care about catching Pokemon, training Pokemon, modifying their natures, choosing relative EV values that are not hindered to such a complicated and at times frustrating to get a handle on value system, then this game is pretty accessible for you, especially the shiny hunting, which I've already stated is pretty great for beginners who've never tried the shiny hunt or just want an easier shiny hunting experience. This game has a lot for you to love, and like I said before, it's a great first step for some of the newcomers of the Pokemon franchise, and also it's a great first step for some of the new changes that Game Freak should be making for Pokemon games going forward. Now, of course, there's definitely room for improvement in some systems, and I've stated that I think we should definitely keep some of the formulas they've used here, especially for most of the mechanics that they use. But only time will tell how Game Freak chooses to proceed in the next entry of the franchise. Unfortunately, it's very likely that I'll still buy the game regardless what they do because it's Pokemon and I fucking love Pokemon despite the problems that it has, despite the fan base. But hey, it is what it is. But until then, I do hope I somewhat helped explain why I think Pokemon Legends Arceus is not a good game, but it is a good Pokemon game. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me ramble throughout this entire video. Uh, if you did stay to the end, then I hope to see you in whatever I make next. And as always, remember to stay classy, stay lovely, and be yourself. I'll catch you guys next time. Okay, so I'm coming in at the end of this recording because as I was editing and about to post this video, we actually just got confirmed news of not only a Hisui region Pokemon anime that's going to be coming out, or at least episodes or animations for the Hisui region, which I predicted, obviously, but we're also getting more information, or at least a trailer for the next Pokemon installment, which is going to be Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Automatically, I know I'm gonna have to go with Violet. I love the way Scarlet sounds, but something about Violet is telling me that I want to go with that. I want to go with Purple. But more importantly than that, we've seen in the trailer that they are keeping the open world Pokemon features. I can see already there are Pokemon in the overworld. It's going to be free roam, and thankfully, it's going to be in a more modern setting. So we're not gonna get that oil painting, frustrating to look at graphics, and it's unfortunately gonna be coming out later this year. I know I'm saying unfortunately, but that's because we literally just got them to release a game earlier this year. Not even late last year. We literally got a Pokemon game released earlier this year. So that means they had to be making it at the same time they were making Arceus. And I'm only hoping that they gave themselves enough time to listen to the feedback of the Pokemon players to understand what they need to do for this next game. Because if it is still unpolished by the time it comes out late this year, I'm not sure how the Pokemon fandom is going to react. If you did watch this video, you just heard me talk about all the things that I think they should keep and all the things that they need to improve on. So since they're keeping the open world formula and hopefully keeping the free roam formula, since we still got Pokemon in the overworld, I'm hoping they're going to just be improving on a lot of the mechanics in Arceus, and like I said, using this as a stepping stone into the realm of what Pokemon games should be going forward. So we got a lot to hope for in this new game. I'm actually kind of hoping it gets delayed until 2023. I know it kind of sounds weird that I want a Pokemon game to be delayed, but I really want them to focus and make sure they improve this game so it's a lot less that they need to work on and a lot less that we get to complain about. And more importantly than that, I definitely hope that they fucking introduce the follow mechanic, because it is so easy to implement, and if they don't have it in the second open world game, I am going to be extremely upset. But anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that we got confirmed news of a Hisui region animated episodes or animations coming, and we have a new Pokemon game that has confirmed it will continue the open world free roam Pokemon formula. So, pretty amazing news to get just before this video uploaded. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are excited like I am for more open world Pokemon. And until next time, you guys stay awesome, stay classy, stay lovely.